The status report for 2012 covers every large-scale integrated project that we're aware of around the world. It also covers most of the key issues associated with CCS, both those things that are good news and the things that are a bit challenging for us. And we make a series of recommendations for government and for industry on what we need to do to make sure that CCS progresses into the future. The status report is one of a kind. There's no other report in the world that catalogues to the same degree all of the large-scale integrated projects and increasingly some of the smaller scale ones as well. It gives the full picture of what's happening for CCS, a really important climate change technology, right across the globe. Well, this year, pleasingly, we've got one extra large-scale integrated project compared to last year. We're now up to 75. Of course, some projects didn't proceed during the past year, but they've been offset by new ones that have come on board. I think, importantly, what we've been seeing is that enhanced oil recovery is a new and important driver for new large-scale CCS projects, and we're seeing this particularly in North America. I think the other exciting news is that we're seeing a lot of new projects coming through in China. Over the last year, 5 new projects have been added to the list out of China, and we see it now as the fastest growing region for CCS. The International Energy Agency, in a number of its reports, shows that if we're to achieve a 2 degrees C climate change target at the lowest cost, then CCS is actually a vital technology. It'll contribute somewhere between 14%, perhaps as much as 20% of the emission reductions over the period to 2050. Importantly, if we don't have CCS, then we're looking at many trillions of dollars of extra investment in other technologies to try to achieve the same temperature outcome. And that, of course, will cost every consumer a great deal more than it needs to. So we've got to have CCS. Well, we're in fairly reasonable shape for 2015 in that we've probably got enough projects to meet something like 70% of the target that the IEA would see as necessary if CCS is to play its appropriate role. Where we're in much deeper trouble is in trying to reach the 2020 target, where by our estimation, at best, we've probably got about 50 projects that can be achieved by then. But this is a fraction of what the IEA really says is necessary. The lesson from this is we really need governments to do a lot more in policy support for CCS that will unlock the substantial private sector investment that we need to progress CCS to its rightful place. Well, I think we need to see increasingly governments understand that CCS projects, once in operation, often are at a cost disadvantage to some of the technologies they compete with, particularly where we don't have very significant carbon prices present anywhere in the world. So what we need to see is a refocusing of the policy support that CCS gets to make sure it's on a level playing field with other technologies, certainly not any more advantaged, but at least able to compete on an equal basis. I think one of the challenges for the Institute and for the industry generally is to improve the understanding in the community generally about CCS. We need to help them to understand exactly what the technology is, that it's safe, that it's really vital to their future if we're to address climate change at the lowest cost, and that it really is a technology that is present today, works in more than 8 projects storing over 20 million tonnes per annum, and has huge potential throughout the world to address the big issues we face around climate. Well, I think there's been some really encouraging developments on a policy front in several areas. Undoubtedly, the Australian carbon tax is a welcome development and one that we need to see replicated much more throughout the world if we're to start properly pricing carbon and unlocking the technologies that are needed. I think importantly as well, the UK government has recognised some of the real challenges for early projects and is now reforming its electricity market to ensure that renewables and nuclear and CCS all receive similar levels of assistance in their early stages. I should also note that in the UK, the running of a CCS competition with £1 billion available to be awarded to the winners of the competition is a welcome development, as is the early stages of the NER 300 process in the European Union. I think these are the standout policy developments of the past 12 months. Well, undoubtedly the developing world is very important. In fact, we need to see something like 70% of the deployment of CCS to occur in the developing world over the coming 20 to 25 years, because that's really where the growth in emissions is going to come from most. We've been very active in enabling a range of developing country governments to put themselves into a position ready to install CCS, to have the right regulatory frameworks in place, to understand what the technology can do, and to train people in the key aspects of CCS and especially enhanced oil recovery. I think with this sort of capacity building, we'll see much more opportunity in developing countries in the coming years for CCS. I think the developments in China over the past 12 months herald a new opportunity for CCS. CCS is now part of the 12th five-year plan in China. It has raised its profile and significance immeasurably, and I think with great pleasure we operate in conjunction with the National Development Reform Commission in China through an MOU we signed earlier this year. And I think that what we are going to see in China is a commitment to CCS that will enhance their own liquid fuel security situation, address much of their emission issues from parts of their industry, and also place China in a very positive position in technology development, well positioned to export technology to the rest of the world. I think this is a very important move that is coming from China now on CCS, and one which we're pleased to be involved with. I think knowledge sharing is one of the most important opportunities that we must harness if we're going to rapidly deploy CCS. And it's really why the Institute exists. Our whole purpose is to acquire knowledge from projects, from consultants, from experience around the world, in projects, in legal and regulatory frameworks, and in developing countries, so that those who have gone first share their experiences with those that come second and third and fourth, and we learn from the mistakes and the experiences so that it's cheaper for all, and we actually deploy this technology much faster than we'd otherwise be able to. So knowledge sharing sits at the heart of how we accelerate the deployment of CCS.